Hi everybody, it's Cassandra Donnelly and I'm here in my art studio. It's September 25th, 2024, and I want to show you what I've been up to from September 13th through September 23rd. And I have this file here. I'm going to show you in person and then I will end this with some slides, so stay tuned. Mostly I did decorative papers and jelly prints. And that's basically it. I started one collage, which I didn't finish. I didn't even scan this. I don't even really count this, but it seems unusual for me if I don't have a collage during the week. So even though I started it, I didn't like it. It wasn't good enough, in my opinion, to do a scan. And I mean, it could just be background collage fodder, which most of my stuff is, but I don't know. I just wanted to add more to this before I scan it. Also this was my most recent one. I'll put the scan of it at the end. This is just decorative mamagami paper. And this was just basically me getting loose and doing all kinds of mark making on it to the point of like over busyness. And then I put it on the gel plate and added some more layers to it, including with stencils. Like these blue marks here were from stencils on the gel plate. I also sprayed it with Distress Oxide sprays, and then I finished it off with some gold paint that I just painted on, and then I took a paper towel to lighten it up a little bit. I'm not happy with it yet. I think I'm going to spray it with some pink Distress Oxide inks, or maybe put another contrasting layer, or maybe some acrylic ink with some saran wrap. I'm trying to show you so the light is not hitting on it. So funny. Okay. It does have a lot of interesting marks and stuff and subtleties. I like those subtleties, but I don't know. I'm not happy with it. Maybe in a project or just as a collage piece, it might look nice. So I did a bunch of decorative papers. That's just me playing around on just copy paper. Let's see what the date was. 9/16 that I finished. Took several days. I also used the rubbing plates underneath, and then I added some more oil pastels to make marks, and I scratched into it. It was just kind of a fun little piece. I was also showing people at work how to use the rubbing plates and also how to scratch into the oil pastels. Then I did a lot of these decorative papers. I really want to look at this. This is just watercolor paper, watercolor paint, and oil pastels. I did sort of a wax resist. I also did some sgraffito where I scratched into it. This was another just decorative paper, and it's watercolors on watercolor paper. And then I did these little flower-like shapes, and I took a graphite stick and I just traced around it. I'm not sure I like that look a whole lot, but I'll figure out something to do with it. Sometimes when you don't have the energy or time to make like a big painting, just making these little decorative, scraps and papers is kind of fun and a good stress relief. Then also at work this week, I think it was Monday, we made a rainy day because it was raining a whole lot this week. There were some storms that blew through. So I did sort of a loose interpretation of a rainy day with oil pastels, and I used sgraffito technique. So I put all kinds of different colors for the background and didn't even like blend them that well. But I kind of like the look, how it's going from like red to bluish gray to bright blue to reddish purple to blue to black. And then for each raindrop, I put a different colors and then scratched into it like that. And I even have the raindrops going different directions because to me it just seemed boring for them all to go in the same direction. And then I made some puddles here for the raindrops to fall into. And since the colors were so similar, I kind of divided it with a line and then put some dark shadows there in between. And I also did some faint raindrops, and then I scratched into it at the end. I put things like cleansing waters, and it said, "Let us cleansing waters restore your soul." These are the decorative papers I made. They're mostly jelly prints, but there's also mark making done on them, and I used a sponge with stencils. A few of them have some stamps. It's really windy out, so I'm going to try to show you these. This was my first one. Well, these aren't necessarily in order that I created them in, but this was actually scrap paper. I was trying to clean off my plate, but it looks pretty cool, doesn't it? This was cardstock. This is done on medical exam paper, and I basically just used a sponge with the first stencil, and then I used Distress Oxide inks sprayed through a stencil for this one. This is the next one, done the same way on a medical exam paper. This one is a jelly print, but also the first layer was just with a sponge and stencils. This went through many layers, and I also used acrylic paint pen to get those circles, and I used I think this one is my favorite in this series. It had a lot of layers as well. Started out with the sponges through the stencils. I started each one with black acrylic paint, and then I added more layers with lighter colors and gradually worked to like white. And then there's some mark making on here with the blue and some splatters and some Distress Oxide inks. This one took a while to make. It had many layers. It was sort of one that I messed up and then recreated, starting with black acrylic paint through using a sponge through a stencil, then later I put it on the gel plate after about 2 layers and several more layers. And then I also got more strategic with this mandala stencil and put it on a few places with the black ink. This one also started off with a sponge through a stencil with black paint, and then it had another few layers, and then took it to the gel plate. And I also did some splatters and Distress Oxide inks, and used packaging material to get these little circles on there. Really like this one. These were all made the same way, so maybe I should just show you instead of explaining each one. This one is one of my favorites. I really like the colors. And again, these just took so long to make. This one was really cool, and actually I was just cleaning off my gel plate, I think. Or, I don't know. No, I think I just sprayed the Distress Oxide inks through a stencil on top of that, blue layers. The layers, there was a couple different layers with the blue, or probably more than that. This one I had trouble with, and I just couldn't seem to get it right, and I went back and forth. This is actually rice paper. So this is the first of the rice paper. All the other ones were multimedia paper. And you can see the rice paper there. And I kind of obliterated it with the packaging tape with white paint. And so then I put some new layers to try to make it alive again. And I used red paint through the stencil here. It didn't show up well, so I took a white jelly pen and just marked around it. This is rice paper also. This one actually never made it to the gel plate. It was just a couple layers, I think, with the sponge through a stencil, and then later some Distress Oxide ink sprayed through a stencil. This one's also a favorite of mine, and this has many different marks, but I did kind of mess it up to begin with when I put that white paint through on the back of the packaging tape, and the bubble wrap rather, and then I added some more marks and stuff. This is Interference Green Blue, and then sometimes I just put dabs of the paper down on the jelly plate. So, but I do like the way this one looks. It's windy out here. I'm trying to get you so you can see it pretty well. I like this one a lot too. This is rice paper. Also was made with a sponge through a stencil, and then some Distress Oxide sprays. I can't remember. This one probably went through the gel plate as well. Really like this one, but it did rip on me. This is a super cool one. And started off with the sponge through stencils with black acrylic paint, and then more layers. There's another rice paper. These are all rice papers that I'm showing you now. This one's also rice paper. It's a big long one. Actually, this one didn't make it to the... I don't think this one got to the gel plate. I think I just used a sponge with black acrylic ink. And there was actually like a piece of foam that was like a square nut. I came from maybe something we put together, and I just used it to make all these little squares, and later I sprayed some Distress Oxide inks through stencils, and it's a really cool look in my opinion. This is made the same way. It's also rice paper. Okay, so this one is pretty cool. It had lots and lots of different layers. This is cardstock right here. This one took a while before I liked it. several layers. This one was my roll-off, and actually it was scrap paper. You can sort of see that there was some writing on the other side that I covered up. It was like some notes for me to remember when I created one of my videos. And it took lots and lots of layers and some mark making. I did use a black ink pen, permanent marker, to draw some of those marks, the circles mainly, like that, and some slashes. And the colors just look really cool, I think. This one looks like it could almost be a work of art. This one was made with cheap Dollar Tree paper. It was Crayola's, the name brand. I tried to look it up. It doesn't really say. It's sort of like newsprint, but it's just basically that they're cheap paper for little kids. And I used it to just clean up my gel plate, but then I added another layer through a stencil of this dark red. So it was like sort of reddish, purple, blue, and then more reddish purple. And then on stamp, actually, like that. The stamp was done with Distress Oxide inks, but the color changed after I sprayed it with water. So it's kind of cool. These were the smaller ones I did with leftover paper, and they just have lots and lots of layers on them. This one had a lot of my own marks on it. Just like this. With the painter pen. and then in black acrylic paint, which I scratched into on top of all those other layers. These had a lot of like different layers and distress oxide ink sprayed on them, and then there was also a piece of lace that I used for this one. Same with this one, it was really simple. Just like maybe 3 layers for this one. It did have some, that blue there is distress oxide inks. This one is also very simple, just black acrylic ink through a sponge, and then some red ink also. Can't remember if I did that through a sponge or on the brayer. I think I did did it on the gel plate. This one had several different layers, starting with black acrylic ink through a stencil with a foam sponge, and then more layers on the brayer, and then I dabbed this certain spots on the gel plate. This one also had many layers, and I marked into the paint and made these little scratches. This one also had many layers. This one I struggled with, but when I added the final layer, it kind of brought everything out together. Mostly made on the gel plate. This one too started off with a sponge through a stencil with black acrylic paint, and then it had a few more layers. Then finally sort of a light layer. It's real subtle. This one I struggle with, but I think it's really cool. And this one was made with like a mandala stencil, and I got it on part of it, and then I tried to match up the rest of it so it would just kind of look distressed. I added some inks and stamps on the edges there. This is the last one. Bunch of layers, and then there's a stamp that I use distress oxide inks with. So I would like to create a video showcasing some of this process, but again, this altogether took maybe 5 or 6 hours, which I know is ridiculous. And I'm not good at jelly printing, and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing. That's part of why it takes so long, plus maybe I'm a perfectionist, and I realized I don't like things to be so simple. I like them to be more layered and complex and maybe subtly nuanced. So that's part of my problem. I created these so I could maybe sell them later in like collage kits, and so I'm slowly putting together some papers. But I do have to learn how to create things in a more time efficient manner, which I'm not good at yet. But the thing is, I don't consider it a loss of time because I'm still learning. Like through this process, I'm learning how to do it better. The more I do it, the more I'm going to get proficient at it. And like this one's really cool. Could I recreate it exactly? I'm not sure, but it's really cool. But eventually I'm going to figure out what I'm doing, and it won't be so haphazard, because right now my process is a little haphazard. That's why I'm debating if I want to create a video, but I think maybe I will, and just share some of the things I've learned and just share part of my process with creating this. I don't have footage for the entire thing, just parts of it. So if you'd be interested in watching that, let me know. Thanks. Also made this on 9/21. Basically, the background was actually made a year ago, but what I did was I used some crackle paste and put it through a mandala stencil, and that's the part that I did on 9/21. And notice those cracks in the background there, they were there before. This is the second set of jelly prints that I made on September 21st. These were much more simple than the other ones. So they only had a few layers. This is medical exam paper. This is my first one. I did like a background of 2 colors, and then I also did this one. A lot of this was just me just experimenting and playing around. Yeah, but I like the flowers in here. That might make something nice for a collage piece element. Then this is just plain paper right here. And then this one is just only has a few layers. It's kind of nice to do jelly prints like this when you come home late at night and you're kind of tired and you don't have the energy for like a major project. This has a little bit of leftover crackle paste right there on that end. This blue one was just a leftover strip, and it ended up ripping. It's just got blue on there. It was like, you know, when you do a print and you got all the little edges, I'll take this and just dab up all the little edges. This one I'm happy with because I actually successfully did what I was trying to do, which was I was trying to, well, actually I think it's the other one that I got what I was trying to do. No, maybe it was this one. Yeah, it was this one. I wanted to leave the letters yellow and have then a blue around the letters and the marks and stuff. And I'm a little dyslexic, so that was kind of tricky for me. But because I kind of reverse things in my head sometimes. But I managed to do it by I had to do the ghost print in order to get successful with this. So after I had the yellow background, what I did is I took like the number stencil like that, and with some words in a typewriter, and then I layered that on top of the paint, and then I took another piece of paper and pressed it into that. I think it was medical paper I used, medical exam paper. And then with the ghost print, then I laid this yellow background on top of the ghost print, and then got this print where I was able to keep my letters and the stencil part, you know, yellow, which is what I was trying to do. And I have sometimes had trouble understanding how to do that, so I felt victorious. This was another simple gel print on medical exam paper, just 2 layers, 1 stencil, red background, yellow paint. This print was just me cleaning off my jelly plate, and I left it on overnight, and it made these interesting lines. I don't know how or why, but parts of the plate, it didn't reach parts of the plate, and so it left these little cracks. And then the paint was left on the plate where those cracks were. And I got some of the grungy edges up, and then I just later added this yellow because that part was white, so I just wanted to put more color there. But this one's cool. Oh, this was another scrap with some of the leftover crackle paste. This was just another plain jelly print with some nickel azo gold, I think, and 1 stencil in a lighter color. This was my roll-off paper, and but it still might make good collage fodder. You know, when your brayer has too much paint on it, you roll it off onto something. So I used this, but I noticed that if I had the bubble wrap underneath this piece of medical exam paper, when I rolled it off, it made these little bubbles. So I think that's kind of cool. Now I'm going to start my slideshow. You've seen all these pictures before. Hopefully you get a better look at them. With the scans, I increase the contrast. I do, you know, autocorrect, so quality is a little bit nicer. So just take a look, and then I'm going to say goodbye to you. I'm going to play some music while you're looking at this. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little tour of what I've been up to in the past 10 days. Have a blessed day, everyone. Take care and make some art. And if you don't have a lot of time, just make some scrap art or decorative papers like I did. Even this, even this roll off can count for something and be used as collage fodder. Bye.